even though they didn't make the American Championship game last year, Memphis still had a fantastic season. The Tigers went 11-2 with a big bowl win over West Virginia. Ryan Silverfield continuing to do a great job with this program. He's 21-5 with the Tigers over the last 2 years, and this could be the year the Tigers finally break through and get back to the conference championship for the first time since 2019, and maybe, just maybe, could be a contender for the college football playoff. You take a look at last year, guys. Again, Memphis 11-2, and most people say, wow, 11-2, and you still didn't make your conference title game. I think that shows how decent and how good the American was last year. Tulane was solid, as we know. Army was good, as we know. Then a handful of other teams that were, maybe not title contenders, but greatly impacted who made it. Memphis, it was one of those weird seasons for them. They beat Florida State on the road. Then they come back and they lose to Navy by 12. And then they go on a little bit of a winning streak. And then they lose to UTSA 44-36, which is likely going to happen when one of your defensive players gives the opposing quarterback all the defensive signals. But, you should look into that if you haven't heard about that. And then they ended the year with a win at number 18 Tulane. So ended the year on a big high, beating the Green Wave by 10 points. But here's the thing with Memphis that has irked me always under Ryan Silverfield is they're a good team. They're always competitive, but I feel like they always play down to their opponents. Again, 11-2 last year is great, but they had 4 one-possession wins. They beat Florida State by just 8. They beat North Texas by just 8. They only beat Charlotte by 5. They only beat Rice by 7. So even some of the weaker teams within the conference, Memphis doesn't always blow out of the water like they should. They also, defensively, are wildly inconsistent. So is that going to be the same case this year, especially with the Tigers losing so much? The offense loses tons, namely their all-time leading passer in Seth Hennigan. It's a huge blow to this Tigers offense that averaged over 35 points per game and over 440 yards per game. They also lose their 1,300-yard rusher in Mario Anderson and their top 5 pass catchers. So, just gutted. Quarterback's gone, running back's gone, top pass catcher's gone. What does Memphis do now? Well, they're going to turn to a mobile quarterback in Brendan Lewis, who transfers in from Nevada, where he threw for over 2,200 yards and also rushed for nearly 800 yards. He was a leading rusher for the Wolfpack last year. There's a lot of potential there. I think Silverfield can get the most out of him. Lewis, up and down career, started at Colorado, not too great there. Nevada had some decent signs of brilliance. Think this could be a breakthrough year for him with the Tigers if he can take better care of the football. The running back core, better than you think, right? Yes, they lose Mario Anderson. It's a huge blow, but Sutton Smith was set to have a breakout year last season. He got hurt for the year, so he returns now fully healthy, and so does Greg DeRosier, who rushed for, about 300 yards last year, but again, was kind of overshadowed by Mario Anderson. You've got 2 very capable running backs that could fill that void. The wide receiver core is the biggest concern for me. Who is Brendan Lewis going to throw to? Who are the top pass catchers? Who are the playmakers for Memphis? This can't be a team that solely runs the ball with their running backs and with the mobile quarterback, which adds an extra element, but you got to hope Lewis throws the ball better, and you got to hope he finds some chemistry with whoever is going to be at wide receiver. The offensive line is going to do a great job protecting them. 96 starts up front, but finding pass catchers on the outside is the key. Defensively, last year, ironically, was the best defensive year under Ryan Silverfield. He's entering his 6th year with the program, and the Tigers had their best points per game mark, only giving up 23.8 points per game. But now they lose their top 8 tacklers from last year. They did hit the transfer portal hard, though. You got to keep in mind, Ryan Silverfield, to his credit, has done great in the recruiting trail. He brought in the number 1 ranked Group of 5 recruiting class. All the Group of 5 programs, Memphis had the best recruiting class. They do return William Whitlow up front on the defensive line. He was a first-team American selection last year for the Tigers. They bring in Reggie Grimes as well, in from Oklahoma, and Taylor Burton had 3.5 sacks last year from UT Martin. So some big-time transfers up front. Everett Rosaw is in from UAB as well. That's a huge underrated pickup that people aren't talking nearly enough about, as is Sam Brumfield in from Virginia Tech at linebacker. So the front 7, I actually think, is going to be solid for Memphis in 2025. I think despite the losing of their top 8 tacklers, I have a lot of faith in their defensive line and linebacking core. My biggest concern is the secondary. Filled with transfers again. 8 transfers coming in to fill the void in the secondary. None of those transfers were full-time starters from where they came from. They gave up 258 passing yards per game last year, Memphis did. Now you got a lot of new faces. How quickly do they build chemistry? How quickly do they pan out as a full-time starter? That's my biggest concern for Memphis, is the wide receivers on offense, the secondary on defense. You take a look at the schedule, though, for the Tigers. Look, I tell you right now, I don't think this team is better than they were last year, but they could actually end up with a better record than they had last year, or at least the same record at 10-2 in the regular season, because the schedule's so weak. It really is. Yes, they draw Arkansas, which is not a horribly tough game. They could beat the Hogs. They draw Arkansas in the non-conference, but the road slate's manageable. Their toughest road games are UAB and ECU. They host Navy. They host Tulane. They host USF. Memphis is 43-6 at home, 43-6 at the Liberty Bowl since 2017, and some of their biggest games of the season are going to be played at the Liberty Bowl. So this could be a special year. I'll tell you right now, the Tigers will start 3-0. They'll beat Chattanooga, and they will beat Georgia State and Troy. The Tigers have won 11 straight games over Sun Belt Conference opponents. Georgia State went 3-9 last year, gave up over 200 rushing yards per game. Shouldn't be an issue for the Tigers. And the same for Troy. Memphis won 38-17 last year. This is a Troy team that's more experienced, certainly. More experienced than they were last year, but still has a little bit of a ways to go. Maybe the margin's a little bit slimmer, especially with Memphis have to go on the road. They won by 21 last year. Maybe they win by 14-17, but still going to be a victory. Then they host Arkansas. This is an intriguing game, guys. Again, Arkansas is one of those teams that is wildly inconsistent. Never know what to expect out of Sam Pittman's squad. Yes, they've got a mobile quarterback in Taylon Green. They have some talent at wide receiver, and the defense is hit or miss. So I think this game's a lot closer than people realize. First meeting between Arkansas and Memphis since 1998. I think Memphis has this game within one possession heading into the fourth quarter. But I do think Arkansas pulls away. I think they find a way to just narrowly eke out a victory at the Liberty Bowl, where the Hogs actually won the Liberty Bowl last year over Texas Tech, and typically play well when it's a bowl game. A little bit different in a regular season matchup, but regardless, Memphis falls 3-1. Then the schedule lightens up. A little bit, and not that it was hard to begin with. Arkansas is the toughest test there. I mean, you look at that: Florida Atlantic, Tulsa, UAB, USF, and Rice. They're 3-1 right now. I think they win their next 5. I'm not concerned about Florida Atlantic. They have a new head coach in Zach Kittley. I think the offense is going to be pretty dang good. Could be dangerous. Could test this Memphis secondary. Problem? Florida Atlantic's defense. Really, really bad. Only 2 starters are back, and they gave up over 30 points per game. Memphis should find a way to win this game on the road. And look, they're going to make some of these games against weaker opponents closer than they need to be, because that's been the Memphis way for pretty much every year under Ryan Silverfield. Again, they shouldn't have only beat Charlotte by 5. They shouldn't have beat North Texas by 8. They shouldn't have beat Rice by 7. They should have won those games by a lot more. Some of these games against weaker opponents, Memphis is going to make sure they're close because they play down to their opponents. But they'll find ways to win. Again, we think they win those next 5. They'll beat Florida Atlantic. They'll beat Tulsa, who has a new head coach in Trey Lamb, who might end up being a better golfer than he is a head coach. Time will tell. But they allowed 42.5 points per game last year. New coach, new faces, at home. Memphis gets the win. Coming out of the bye, they take on UAB. Maybe a bit of a trap game, because I like this UAB offense quite a bit. They could be a sleeper team in the sense of maybe getting to a bowl game in 2025. But off the week of rest, UAB's defense still really, really bad, giving up over 200 rushing yards per game. These are games where Memphis could dominate on the ground with 2 very good running backs and a mobile quarterback. I think they'll get past the Blazers. I think they'll get past USF. That, to me, is the toughest game in that 5-game stretch we just mentioned. They beat the Bulls last year 21-3, but keep in mind, USF, they battled some injuries last year. Last year, they were supposed to go on the road to USF, then a hurricane hit, so they actually had to play the game in Orlando. It wasn't even a true home game for the Bulls. There was no crowd there. Memphis got the win 21-3. This year, I think it's a lot closer. The Bulls have 16 starters back. They've got an offense I think can hang with anybody in this conference, but can their defense do so? 8 starters back on defense, but wasn't all that great last year. At home, I lean towards Memphis, and I certainly give them the edge over Rice. So they only beat by 7 last year, but like Florida Atlantic, like Tulsa, like a handful of teams in the American, dealing with a lot of new faces and a brand new head coach. So, having said all of that, Memphis is on a tear. They're 8-1. They should be nationally ranked. Their only losses to Arkansas, and I think that game's fairly close. But then those final 3 games will determine how successful the season is for the Tigers. Because Tulane, ECU, and Navy are not easy games at all for Memphis. That Tulane game is really interesting to me. And this game has major conference title implications, could have playoff implications if Tulane's doing well. I mean, this is a massive, massive game on November 7th. It should be noted that the home team has lost the last 2 meetings between these squads. Memphis beat Tulane on the road last year by 10, and then the year prior in 2023 in Memphis led 21-10, but ultimately lost 31-21. So not a good showing there. I actually lean Tulane here, and a major reason for that is the addition of Jake Retzlaff, a late addition at quarterback for Jake Retzlaff from BYU to Tulane. I was so concerned about Tulane's offense. I didn't have faith in their quarterback. They lost Mekhi Hughes. They lost some of their top wide receivers. I was concerned offensively for them, and especially at quarterback. I didn't have faith in anybody on that roster. Now I do. A veteran guy who was not amazing at BYU, but good enough to lead them to 11 wins, now comes in for this Green Wave program. And factor in that Tulane has 8 starters back on the defensive side of the ball that was really, really good. I look at this and say, if Tulane shuts down the running game, if Tulane's front 7, which is pretty solid, shuts down the running game for Memphis and contains Brendan Lewis to the pocket, can the Tigers realistically win this game through the air with Lewis throwing the ball to a very inexperienced core of wide receivers? I'm going to say no. So I look at this game and I say Tulane to me owns the defensive advantage. Offensively, these two teams could be fairly even, maybe slightly towards Memphis. Home field advantage, yes, plays a big role, but Tulane was able to win here a few years ago. Memphis, while they have been great at home in almost the last decade, had a lot of close games. Give me Tulane to pull off a minor upset maybe and shake up the American standings. They get the win over the Tigers, and I think Memphis drops the next game on the road to ECU. Maybe a little hungover from that Tulane loss, but also an ECU team that's going to really test this secondary. So I think Memphis's 2 weaknesses get exposed in back-to-back weeks. The inability to have a competent passing attack or a dangerous passing attack gets exposed against a strong defense in Tulane. Then next week, their secondary, which has a lot of questions, gets exposed against an ECU passing attack that returns Kattenhauser at quarterback, returns their top wide receiver in Anthony Smith, and averaged over 265 passing yards per game last year. That's going to be the difference maker. So the wide receivers get exposed against Tulane, the secondary gets exposed against ECU, and that's not an easy place to play either, especially when the Pirates are solid and have a good team, which they will this year. Won 5 of their final 6 last year, gaining a lot of momentum. Memphis drops back-to-back games. They're 8-3, but I think they close out the year off the bye at home with a win over Navy. A bit of a revenge game after losing to the Midshipmen by 12 last year, 56-44, despite posting nearly 700 yards of offense by themselves. I think the Memphis front 7, off that week of rest, regroups, slows down that Navy rushing attack, and Memphis, ironically, typically plays well against Navy. The Tigers had won 5 straight games over Navy prior to last year's loss. Now at home, well-rested, needing to rally to get a win to end the year on a high, and maybe keep their conference title hopes alive, because who knows what is going to happen to Tulane the rest of the way, or UTSA, or guys like that, or even Navy. I think Memphis does get this win. They win on senior day. That's an added factor. And they close out the year 9-3. You could argue they maybe get to 10-2. Maybe they do beat Tulane at home. Maybe they beat ECU. I think 10-2 probably the best case scenario for the Tigers. Again, I do not think this team is better than last year's, but the schedule lines up very well for them to get close to matching last year's win total. I've got them at 9-3. I think they're bound to slip up to a team that maybe they shouldn't, or bound to lose one of those close games that they were fortunate enough to win last year. Again, 4 one-possession wins in 2024 in an 11-win season. But regardless, Ryan Silverfield still doing a phenomenal job with the Tigers. Another 9-win season, a shot at a 3rd straight double-digit win season if they can win their bowl game. 9-3 for the Tigers. Maximum for them is 10-2. The million-dollar question is, will that be good enough to get them to the conference championship game for the first time since 2019? So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to our expert picks, some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country. You do not want to miss out on those. Take advantage of them. Become a member of our GE Nation today. Also, our weekly newsletters over on thegridironexpert.com. Go sign up for those to become a member of our GE Nation and get non-stop football content year-round. Do not miss out. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.